There are some roads in life you don't volunteer for. Some paths you don't sign up for. You didn't raise your hand and say, "Lord, pick me for pain." Yet somehow you found yourself walking through fire, climbing uphill with tears in your eyes, wondering, "God, why does my journey have to be touch ice hard?" But I came to tell somebody tonight, God does not waste a road. If it's rough, it's because He's shaping you. If it's narrow, it's because He's guiding you. If it's lonely, it's because He's talking to you in a way that the crowd could never hear. The hard road is not punishment. It's preparation. He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to develop you. He's not trying to break you down. He's trying to build you up so when you get to where He's taking you, you'll have the strength to stay there. The hard road reveals what comfort conceals. That's not just a clever phrase. It's a reality that many of us only learn when life knocks the wind out of us. When things are easy, when money's flowing, when friends are around and doors are opening, it feels like we're doing great. But the truth is, comfort can cover things up. Comfort can make you believe you're stronger than you are, wiser than you are, deeper than you are. Comfort hides cracks in your character, shortcuts in your faith, and weaknesses in your foundation. You never know how solid a house is on a sunny day. It's when the storm comes that you find out if the roof leaks, if the walls hold, if the foundation stands firm. That's what the hard road does. It exposes what was always there. God will let you walk into a season where the cushions are stripped away, where the applause dies down, where the easy options vanish. Not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants you to see what you couldn't see before. Sometimes you think you're patient until you're forced to wait. You think you're loving until you have to love someone who can't love you back. You think you're faithful until everything in your life looks opposite to what you prayed for. Comfort never puts you to the test. Comfort lets you skate by on half strength. But the hard road will show you whether your faith is anchored to your feelings or to your God. If you've ever lost a job, you learned something about yourself you didn't know. If you've ever been betrayed, you learned who you could really trust. If you've ever gone without, you learned what you really need. The hard road has a way of peeling back layers, and that's uncomfortable, because most of us spend our lives dressing up layers we don't want to face. But God doesn't bless costumes. He blesses truth. He will lead you into a place where you have to confront yourself, your motives, your habits, your fears, because what you refuse to face will eventually defeat you. Israel thought they were ready for the promised land after leaving Egypt, but God knew the truth. So He led them the long way around. He put them through the wilderness not to punish them, but to show them what was still inside. Complaining, doubt, fear, rebellion. If they had gone straight into Canaan without seeing those weaknesses, they would have lost everything. In the same way, your hard road is God's X-ray machine. It scans you, reveals what comfort would have left hidden, and gives you a chance to deal with it before it destroys you. And here's the beauty of it. Once you see what comfort concealed, you can build strength where there was weakness. You can grow roots where you were shallow. You can learn humility where you were proud. And when God finally brings you into the blessing, you'll have character deep enough to carry it. Because a blessing you're not built for will crush you. That's why the hard road is actually mercy in disguise. So if you're on a rough path, don't curse it. Don't assume God has forgotten you. Ask Him, Lord, what are you showing me about myself? What are you revealing that I never saw when life was easy? Because once you learn the lesson of the hard road, you'll never be deceived by comfort again. You'll understand that storms don't destroy strong houses. They just prove which ones were strong all along. And when you come out on the other side, you'll be able to thank God for the very road you once hated, because it revealed in you the strength, the faith, and the truth you needed all along. Pressure produces power. That simple truth is woven into every part of life, but it becomes crystal clear when you look at how God develops His people. In nature, diamonds are born under intense pressure. Coal doesn't decide to become a diamond. It's transformed by heat, weight, and time pressing down on it until its structure changes forever. The same thing happens in your spirit. God uses the weight of trials, the heat of adversity, and the squeeze of situations you can't control to turn you into something more valuable, more durable, and more brilliant than you were before. We don't like pressure. Nobody wakes up saying, Lord, give me more stress today. Heap on the difficulties. We naturally crave relief, not resistance. But growth never comes from ease. Look at your muscles. If you never put them under resistance, they stay weak. They don't grow because you wish they would. They grow because you push them, stretch them, and force them to carry more than they did yesterday. Pressure is God's gym for your soul. He uses it to build capacity in you, so you can handle greater responsibility, greater influence, and greater blessing. Think about it. If God answered every prayer the moment you whispered it, if every dream came true with no delay, if every door opened effortlessly, you would never develop endurance. You would never know what it means to stand firm when everything around you is shaking. You would never learn to trust Him when you can't trace Him. Pressure is how God teaches you to stand without leaning on circumstances. It's how He toughens you for the future He has in mind. The truth is, power doesn't come from what's easy. Ask any athlete. Ask any soldier. Ask anyone who's had to fight through pain, loss, or opposition. Their strength didn't appear in spite of pressure. It appeared because of pressure. And the same principle holds spiritually. When you're pressed on every side, you have two choices: break down or break through. When Paul wrote, "We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed," he was describing a life under constant pressure, yet filled with unshakable power. That power didn't come from avoiding problems. It came from trusting God in the middle of them. You see, God doesn't waste pressure. If He allows you to face something that squeezes you, it's because He intends to bring something out of you. Pressure exposes what's inside. Squeeze an orange, and you find out what kind of juice is in it. Squeeze a believer, and you'll find out what kind of faith they really have. But here's the good news. Pressure not only reveals what's inside, it refines what's inside. It purifies your motives, burns away the junk, and forces you to rely on God instead of yourself. Joseph understood pressure. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown in prison. He spent years under weight he didn't deserve. But by the time God raised him up to sit in Pharaoh's palace, Joseph had the strength, the wisdom, and the humility to handle the power he was given. If God had promoted him too soon, he would have lacked the character to carry the crown. The pressure prepared him for the throne. David knew pressure too. Before he ever wore a crown, he hid in caves, ran for his life, and fought battles no one else wanted to fight. Every season of pressure built a new level of power in him. By the time he became king, he wasn't just talented with a slingshot. He was forged in adversity, tempered by trial, and strong enough to lead a nation. And even Jesus embraced pressure. In Gethsemane, he prayed under such weight that his sweat became like drops of blood. He didn't run from the pressure of the cross. He endured it, knowing that on the other side of that agony was resurrection power. If the Son of God himself walked the hard road of pressure to accomplish his purpose, why would we think our road will be soft and easy? Pressure produces power because it forces you to tap into strength you didn't know you had. It drives you to your knees in prayer. It strips away illusions that you're in control. It teaches you to depend on God's power, not your own. And when you learn to stand under pressure, you become unshakable. The enemy can't intimidate you with the same old tricks because you've already been through worse and survived. You've already learned that God is faithful in the fire, not just outside of it. So don't despise the pressure you're under. It's not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's a sign that He's preparing you. He's building something in you that's bigger than the season you're in. You may feel crushed, but you're not destroyed. You may feel pressed, but you're not powerless. In fact, the very pressure you're feeling is God's way of developing the power you'll need for the next level of your calling. When the weight feels unbearable, remember the diamond can't see itself forming deep underground. It doesn't know it's becoming priceless. And you may not see what God is shaping in you right now, but one day you will. One day you'll thank Him for the nights you cried, the battles you fought, the storms you weathered, because those were the very things that gave you the strength to stand tall when others would have fallen. Pressure is not your enemy. It's the process God uses to turn ordinary coal into extraordinary diamonds. So instead of asking, Lord, why me? Start asking, Lord, what are you building in me? Because when you come out of this season, you won't just have survived. You'll have more power, more faith, and more authority than you've ever had before. That's why pressure is never wasted in the hands of God. It always leads to power. Isolation is God's invitation. It rarely feels that way at first. When people walk out of your life, when calls go unanswered, when the crowd gets thinner, you're tempted to think something is wrong with you, or worse, that God has left you. But often, it's the exact opposite. When God isolates you, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He's pulling you away from the noise, the distractions, and even the comfort of familiar voices, so you can hear His voice more clearly. We live in a world addicted to crowds. We measure our value by who's around us, who likes us, who affirms us. If people are clapping, we think we're doing well. If people are silent, we panic. But God doesn't measure your purpose by applause. In fact, sometimes He intentionally removes it, so you'll stop depending on people to validate what He has already called you to do. When the phone stops ringing, when the invitations dry up, when the friends you thought were loyal suddenly vanish, that's often a sign that God is taking you into a season of holy isolation. Look at Scripture. Before Moses led Israel out of Egypt, he spent 40 years alone on the backside of a desert. Before David wore the crown, he was hidden in caves and fields with only sheep and silence for company. Before Paul became an apostle, He spent years in obscurity in Arabia, and before Jesus began his public ministry, the Spirit led him into the wilderness, alone. Isolation has always been God's classroom for leaders, visionaries, and people he intends to use mightily. Why does God isolate you? Because the crowd can confuse you. Everybody's opinion starts sounding like truth, and soon you're living to please people instead of pleasing God. When he sets you apart, he strips away those competing voices. You stop leaning on their words and start leaning on his. In isolation, your prayer life deepens because there's no one else to talk to. Your faith matures because you learn to walk by God's guidance, not by group consensus. Isolation also exposes dependence. You discover who you really trust when there's no one around to prop you up. As long as people are clapping, you think you're confident. But when it's just you and God, the cracks show. And that's good, because God wants to fill those cracks himself. He doesn't want you leaning on false supports. He doesn't want you addicted to affirmation or approval. He wants to anchor your identity in him alone. Another thing happens in isolation: vision becomes clear. Crowds bring chatter, but solitude brings focus. When you're alone, you can hear God say things he couldn't say in the noise. You can receive instructions he couldn't give you when you were too busy impressing people. Joseph had to be thrown in a pit and locked in a prison before he fully understood his dream. God will sometimes hide you until your purpose is refined enough to be revealed. He's not punishing you. He's protecting you. If he showed you off too soon, the very people you're trying to impress would tear you down. The enemy will try to lie to you in your lonely season. He'll whisper, "You're forgotten. You're abandoned. You're not good enough." If you were really called, you wouldn't be alone right now. But the truth is, the wilderness is where God speaks identity over his children. When Jesus was baptized, God's voice said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Then immediately Jesus was led into isolation. Notice the sequence: affirmation first, then separation. God confirms who you are before he removes you from the crowd, because he wants you to carry that identity with you when no one else is clapping. And here's the key: isolation is temporary, but it's necessary. You're not meant to live on an island forever. God pulls you away to prepare you, and then he sends you back, stronger, wiser, and ready to walk in your calling. The version of you that enters isolation is not the same version that comes out. When you emerge, you carry authority you didn't have before, because you've heard from God for yourself. You're no longer swayed by every opinion. You're no longer desperate for validation. You're rooted, and rooted people can bear fruit, even in hostile environments. Think about an eagle. When it's time to teach its young to fly, it stirs up the nest and forces them out. Alone in the open sky, those young eagles learn what they were created for. You may feel like your nest has been torn apart, like you've been pushed out into unfamiliar air. But that's how God shows you you were meant to soar. You'll never learn your wings in a crowded nest. You learn them in the open, where it's just you and him. So if you find yourself in a season where people are leaving, opportunities seem scarce, and you feel cut off from everything familiar, don't despair. This is not the end. This is the invitation. God is saying, "Come closer. Hear me. Let me show you who you are and where I'm taking you." When he isolates you, it's not because you're disqualified. It's because you're chosen. And when the time is right, He'll bring the right people back into your life. The ones who are aligned with your assignment, not attached to your old identity. But you won't cling to them the way you used to, because you've already learned the secret you and God are enough. That's the power of isolation. It transforms loneliness into intimacy, silence into revelation, and separation into preparation. So don't waste your lonely season wishing it away. Lean into it. Listen, let God do the deep work He can only do when it's just you and Him. Because when you come out of this season, you won't just be surrounded by people again. You'll be surrounded by purpose. And you'll know without a shadow of a doubt that the same God who met you in the quiet will walk with you in the crowd. Delay is not denial. It's divine design. That's one of the hardest lessons to learn, because when you're waiting, everything inside you screams that something has gone wrong. We live in a world that prizes speed. We want instant answers, instant results, instant success. If it doesn't happen quickly, we assume it's never going to happen. But with God, delay is often a sign that He's working on something deeper than what you can see. When you pray for something and it doesn't show up right away, it's easy to feel forgotten. You look at others getting their breakthroughs, their promotions, their blessings, and you start wondering why your turn hasn't come. But God isn't Amazon Prime. He doesn't deliver in 2 days on your timetable. He delivers right on time according to His plan. If you got everything you asked for the moment you asked, you'd miss the development process that makes you ready to handle the blessing. God isn't just concerned with giving you the promise. He's concerned with making you into the kind of person who can steward it. Sometimes the delay isn't about what you're waiting for. It's about what God is building in you while you wait. He uses waiting rooms to grow patience, trust, humility, and faith. Waiting strips away the illusion that you're in control. It forces you to stop leaning on your own strength and start leaning on His. In delay, your prayer life deepens, your dependence on God sharpens, and your character is refined. Look at Abraham. God promised him a son, but he waited decades to see it happen. That wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. In those years, God was teaching Abraham to trust Him fully, not just for a child, but for everything. The same is true for Joseph. He dreamed of leadership as a teenager, but he spent years in pits and prisons before stepping into the palace. If Joseph had been promoted too soon, his pride would have ruined him. The delay shaped him into the kind of man who could handle authority without it destroying his soul. Even Jesus lived through divine delay. He knew from childhood who He was and what He was called to do, but He didn't start His public ministry until He was 30. For years, He worked quietly as a carpenter, unknown and unseen, waiting for the Father's timing. If the Son of God Himself was willing to wait for the right season, how much more should we? Delay feels like denial when you can't see the bigger picture. But God is strategic. He doesn't just prepare blessings for you. He prepares you for blessings. Sometimes the people you need to meet aren't ready yet. Sometimes the doors you're supposed to walk through are still being built. Sometimes the very thing you're praying for would overwhelm you if it showed up too soon. What you call a setback, God calls a setup. The enemy loves to use delay to plant doubt. He whispers, if God really loved you, He would have answered by now. If you were really called, it would have happened already. But delay is not proof of God's absence. It's often proof of his love. A parent doesn't give a child the keys to a car at age 5. Not because the child is unworthy, but because they're unready. In the same way, God withholds some things until the right time, not to punish you, but to protect you. When you understand that delay is part of divine design, you stop resenting the wait and start using it. Instead of pacing the floor in frustration, you ask, Lord, what are you teaching me in this season? What are you forming in me so I'll be ready when the door opens? Waiting becomes productive when you see it as preparation. You don't waste time, you invest it. And here's the good news: when God finally moves, He can redeem the time you thought was lost. Years of delay can be overturned in a single moment of favor. Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in one day. David went from shepherd boy to king in a moment. God can accelerate His plan so fast it makes your head spin. But He won't do it until you're prepared to handle the acceleration. If you're in a waiting season right now, don't give up. Don't assume the promise is dead. God is not ignoring you. He's orchestrating details you can't see. What feels like a pause is really precision. He's aligning people, places, and timing so that when your moment comes, everything will fit perfectly. And when it happens, you'll realize the delay was never wasted. It was the season where God built roots deep inside you. So when the blessing arrived, you wouldn't be shaken by it. So stop despising the wait. Stop comparing your timeline to someone else's. You're not late. You're in training. You're in the hands of a God who knows exactly what He's doing. And when He finally says, now, no power on earth can stop what He's planned. Delay isn't denial. It's divine design. Trust the designer. God shapes destiny in the dark. We don't like the dark. We're wired to crave light, to crave clarity, to want to see where we're going. But if you look at how God works, He often does His greatest work in hidden places. Seeds grow underground long before they ever break through the soil. Babies are formed in the womb, out of sight, before they take their first breath. God crafts greatness in secret, where no one can see, where no one applauds, where it feels like nothing is happening at all. But everything is happening. The dark seasons of life are the ones we usually want to escape. We pray, Lord, just get me out of this valley. Deliver me from this night. But God often keeps you there because He's doing surgery on your soul. He's shaping you, stretching you, and strengthening you for what's coming. If He rushed you into the light too soon, you'd be exposed before you were ready. Just like film has to develop in a dark room, your destiny has to develop in a place where no one's watching. Look at David. Before he ever fought Goliath, before he ever wore the crown, he was out in the fields with sheep. Alone, unseen, forgotten. But that's where he learned courage. That's where he learned how to fight lions and bears. That's where he learned how to worship with no audience but God. If David had skipped the dark fields, he would have had no chance in the bright battlefield. The skills and the faith he gained in obscurity prepared him for the platform God was leading him to. The same is true for Joseph. God gave him a dream of leadership, but instead of going straight to the throne, Joseph went to the pit, to slavery, to prison, places of darkness and limitation. But in those dark places, Joseph learned discipline. He learned integrity. He learned to depend on God instead of on people. By the time he stood in Pharaoh's court, Joseph wasn't just a dreamer anymore. He was a man shaped by hardship, ready to handle power without letting power handle them. Even Jesus' life followed this pattern. We know about his miracles, his sermons, his cross, and his resurrection. But for 30 years, he lived in almost complete obscurity. No spotlight, no crowds. Just quiet preparation in a carpenter's home. The Savior of the world spent most of his life hidden, because the Father was shaping him for the mission that lay ahead. If Jesus embraced the dark, how can we expect to avoid it? The dark is where God removes distractions. When you can't see clearly, you have to trust him completely. You stop walking by sight and start walking by faith. You learn to hear his voice, not because everything around you is loud and bright, but because everything else is stripped away. Darkness forces dependence. It's where God trains you to hold his hand, even when you can't see where he's leading you. It's also where God refines your motives. When no one's watching, when there's no applause, no recognition, no reward, will you still be faithful? Will you still pray when there's no platform? Will you still serve when no one thanks you? If you can be faithful in the dark, you'll be ready to handle the light. But if you're only faithful when people are watching, your destiny will collapse under the weight of your pride. God hides you to purify you. He uses darkness as a shield to protect you from yourself. The enemy wants you to believe the dark means God has abandoned you. But silence isn't absence. Hiddenness isn't rejection. Just because you can't see God working doesn't mean he's not working. Think of a seed underground. You don't see it sprouting. You don't see it taking root. But deep in the soil, life is happening. That's how God shapes destiny. Out of sight, away from the noise, where the roots can grow deep enough to sustain the weight of the fruit that's coming. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet have been through long seasons of darkness. They carry a strength and a wisdom that can't be faked, because it was forged in pain and patience. They've learned that dark places aren't wasted places. They've learned to trust God when it feels like everything is falling apart. And when God finally brings them into the light, they don't crumble under pressure, because their character was formed in secret. So if you feel hidden right now, don't panic. If it feels like you're stuck in the night while everyone else is shining in the day, don't lose heart. God hasn't forgotten you. He's forming you. The dark season is your development season. It's the place where your roots grow deep, your faith grows strong, and your destiny is shaped to last. And when God decides it's time to bring you into the light, you'll be ready. You won't just have a gift, you'll have the character to carry it. You won't just have a calling, you'll have the maturity to walk it out. You won't just have influence, you'll have integrity that keeps you steady when the spotlight comes. That's why God shapes destiny in the dark, so that when your time comes, you're not just shining, you're standing. The darkness is not your enemy, it's your training ground. The very place you're begging God to take you out of is the place He's using to make you unshakable. So stop cursing the night and start trusting the one who holds the night in his hands. The same God who forms seeds underground, who knits babies together in hidden wombs, who prepared shepherd boys and prisoners for thrones. That same God is working in your darkness. And when He's done, you'll come out stronger, wiser, and ready for everything He has prepared for you. The rough path builds roots, not just wings. Everybody loves the idea of flying high, soaring into success, stepping into blessing, living the dream. We talk about wings. All the time, wings of opportunity, wings of favor, wings of breakthrough. But here's what most people forget. Wings without roots are dangerous. If you rise too fast, without something deep holding you steady, you'll get blown off course the moment the wind changes. That's why God often takes his people down rough, uneven roads. He's not trying to slow you down. He's making sure you can stand when you finally take off. Roots grow downward before branches grow upward. Any gardener will tell you that a plant with shallow roots may look green for a while, but the moment the sun beats down or the wind blows hard, it withers and dies. Meanwhile, the plant that spends time driving roots deep into the ground survives storms, because it draws strength from something beneath the surface. That's what the rough path does for you. It forces you to dig deep into your faith, into your character, into your relationship with God. When life is easy, you never have to go deep. You can skate by on talent, on charm, on connections. But the rough path strips those props away. It makes you ask, what am I really standing on? Where do I really draw my strength? And in that digging, you find an anchor that success alone can't give you. That's why people who rise quickly without struggle often fall just as quickly. They have wings, but no roots. Look at the life of Joseph. Before he ever ruled Egypt, he walked a rough road. Betrayal by his brothers, slavery in Potiphar's house, false accusations, and prison. Every trial sent his roots deeper. He learned patience in the pit, integrity in Potiphar's house, and faith in the prison. So when God finally gave him wings to fly, when Pharaoh promoted him to power, Joseph didn't let pride destroy him. His roots kept him steady. David's path to kingship was no smoother. He was anointed as a boy but spent years on the run, hiding in caves, living as an outcast. That rough road didn't give David wings immediately. It gave him roots. He learned to lean on God when there was no palace, no crown, no crowd cheering him on. By the time he became king, David wasn't a shepherd with a title. He was a man whose faith was grounded, so deep that success couldn't uproot him. Even Jesus walked a rough road. He didn't launch straight into miracles and ministry. For 30 years, he worked quietly in Nazareth. No spotlight, no stage, just day after day of obedience and preparation. And when his ministry began, it didn't lead to applause alone. It led to opposition, rejection, and ultimately the cross. Yet through it all, Jesus was unshakable because his roots were deep in his Father's will. The rough path doesn't just test your strength, it builds it. Every setback is an opportunity for your roots to go deeper. Every disappointment drives you closer to God. Every unanswered prayer teaches you to depend on Him, not just on what He gives you. It's not fun and it's not fast, but it's necessary. Wings will let you soar for a moment. Roots will help you last for a lifetime. The world celebrates wings. People cheer when you take off, when you get the promotion, when you buy the house, when you finally make it. But they don't see the nights you spent in prayer. They don't see the tears you cried when doors stayed closed. They don't see the inner battles you fought when nobody else believed in you. Those are your roots. Unseen, uncelebrated, but absolutely essential. If you're walking a rough road right now, it might feel unfair. You might be asking, God, why are you making this so hard? Why can't you just open the door already? But the roughness isn't punishment. It's preparation. God is making sure you're not a tree that topples in the first storm. He's making sure that when you get where He's taking you, you won't have to fake your strength, because you've developed real strength. Wings take you up, but roots hold you steady when you get there. If God gave you wings too soon, your success would rise higher than your character could support. The rough road is where God digs those roots in, where He deepens your faith, where He grows your resilience, where He grounds your identity in Him rather than in applause. Think about a skyscraper. Before it ever towers over the skyline, construction workers spend months digging down into the ground, laying a foundation deeper than most people will ever see. The taller the building, the deeper the foundation must be. Your life is no different. If God is taking extra time to build your foundation, it's because He plans to build something tall. So don't resent the rough road. Don't rush past the lessons it's teaching you. Let it do its work. Let it send your roots deeper into prayer, deeper into patience, deeper into trust. One day, when God gives you wings and lifts you higher than you imagined, you'll be glad you have roots to keep you steady, because storms will still come at high altitudes. Winds will still blow even when you're successful. But when your roots are strong, you won't just soar, you'll stand. The rough road doesn't just prepare you for where you're going. It prepares you to stay there when you arrive. So instead of asking God to smooth it out, thank Him for making you strong enough to walk it. The same God who gives you wings to fly is giving you roots to last. And when your moment comes, you won't just rise, you'll remain. So now you see, the hard road isn't a curse, it's a calling. The places you've cried, the battles you've fought, the nights you've spent asking God, why me? Those were not wasted. They were classrooms. They were workshops. They were holy ground where God Himself was shaping you. The hard road reveals what comfort conceals. It presses you until power rises. It isolates you so you can hear His invitation. It delays you not to deny you, but to design you. It hides you in the dark while your destiny is taking shape. And it sends your roots deep, so that when He finally gives you wings, nothing, no storm, no wind, no enemy can shake you. So if you're walking a rough road today, lift your head, wipe your tears, straighten your back, because you're not walking alone. The same God who led Moses through the wilderness, Joseph through the pit, David through the caves, and Jesus through the cross is walking right beside you. And when you reach the end of that hard road, you won't just arrive, you'll arrive ready. You'll arrive strong. You'll arrive unshakable, unstoppable, unmovable, because God Himself built you for it. The hard road may hurt you, but it will not destroy you. It may stretch you, but it will not break you. And when God gets done with you, you will stand up and testify, "It was good for me that I was afflicted, because it made me who I am today." So don't curse the hard road. Thank God for it, because it's carrying you straight into your destiny